welcome to another episode of Outside the Echo Chamber, coming to you from inside the state capitol as the session continues. And we are going to be talking today about an issue that's on the cutting edge of technology, and specifically neuroscience, and something that I think could have some far-reaching effects in the state, not only technologically, but also economically, and for everybody's health as well. And joining me today to talk about House Bill 5014 are two delegates, Delegate John Williams and Delegate Matthew Rohrbach. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. Just to give everyone a kind of cursory look at what this bill is, it would appropriate $2 million to West Virginia University to continue research into, I believe it's a TUS, I'm not sure if that's the specific technology, but transcranial ultrasound stimulation, which basically focuses on neurons in specific parts of the brain to almost reprogram the brain, which can be used to treat things like anxiety and depression, or specifically, perhaps, opioid addiction, and down the road, PTSD. Some fascinating stuff going on here. And Delegate Rohrbach, I know you have a physician's background, so I'll begin with you. You were in that finance committee hearing where a doctor spoke to you guys about what this does and what it could mean. How impressed were you with that presentation? And if you could kind of unpack it a little bit and tell people what it is and what it does.
Well, this is cutting edge technology. I've actually toured the center in Morgantown and seen it firsthand. But this is world level stuff. Now, a lot of your viewers may have seen the episode on 60 Minutes, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, where they went into that and had Dr. Rezai and went into the whole program. But we have had tremendous difficulty in medicine treating these types of diseases.
Sure.
And we're looking at Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and then extending that out to substance use disorder, anxiety, depression. These are things that really, this is world-class research. This $2 million will help to spread this technology further out into the state to get more research on other avenues that we can use this technology for. There have been some miraculous gains with particularly Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And one of the real problems in medicine has been something called the blood-brain barrier. And that keeps about 99% of medicines from going into the brain. Now, one of the things that this technology appears to do is to open up temporarily the blood-brain barrier. Now you say, well, why is that important? It's important for several reasons. Because chemotherapeutic agents can't really get into the brain. That's why brain cancer is so lethal. So if we can actually open up the blood-brain barrier temporarily, give chemotherapy, it can get to the tumor, that's a game changer.
Sure.
The other thing is meningitis, particularly fungal meningitis. Extremely difficult to treat, again, because the medications can't cross the blood-brain barrier. So temporarily breaking that barrier, allowing medicines to get in, is a game changer for treatment of these type of diseases.
And it would seem to me, when you're talking about something more broad like anxiety or depression, there are medications right now for that, but they come in the form of a pill. And it would seem when you take a pill, it's basically going throughout your entire bloodstream, and that speaks to what you're talking about, the blood-brain barrier. There's limited control over what that pill is focusing on and what it's doing. It's almost like, and I know this is a poor analogy, but if you have a cut on your finger, you don't wrap your entire body in a bandage. You want to try to have that Band-Aid on that specific wound, and that's kind of what this is aiming at.
You couldn't be more correct. This is really the future. So you're seeing 21st century technology that as a legislature, we've decided that we are going to advance in the state of West Virginia. People from all around the world are coming to see this technology that is being developed in Morgantown. So I couldn't be happier for what Dr. Rezai and that team is doing.
Delegate Williams, I know this is your neck of the woods, and this is not only something that can advance science, but it can also advance investment in West Virginia, beginning in Morgantown, but something that could certainly spread throughout the hospital system throughout the state.
Certainly, and it's been so interesting to see because it started with a news article maybe 5 to 7 years ago in our local newspaper. You say, well, that's interesting, we'll see where that takes us, and then it's slowly expanded, and then to be featured on 60 Minutes just a few weeks ago, and to have our medical school on national television because they are figuring out these cutting edge ways to treat Alzheimer's. And then you think, Alzheimer's, that's great if we could do something about that, but then to learn that its utility is far more reaching and far more expansive.
Eating disorders.
And so the bill that we passed is going to help them through their FDA trial with PTSD and with potentially with obesity. You think about all the veterans that we have in this state. If this could provide any relief to them, it's well worth it. And so it's like an iceberg. You see the tip of it, but all that potential down below the surface. And this is what that reminds me of. And so we have to. There are a few things you have to balance here. Certainly, we want to help the health of our fellow West Virginians, but also being in medicine, you can't just hang on to this, as you know, Matt. You got to spread this, and if people want to come learn, you help them learn it. But then the third thing, to your point, is we can put ourselves on the map with this, on the cutting edge of neuroscience globally, and that's going to have huge potential to West Virginia. And so it's incredibly exciting, and I'm proud of our state and our university.
Now, I know in the Finance Committee, you guys do your due diligence, and one of the first questions you ask is how, if we appropriate this $2 million, how is it going to be used? Were you satisfied with the response, and what did they tell you about specifically how that money would be used?
I certainly was satisfied, and I'll say too, it was appropriate that yesterday, then the day after we passed this bill out, we had our budget hearing for WVU. And one of the statistics that always just astounds me is that for every dollar that we give to West Virginia University, that puts about $20 more into our local economy. And that is sort of an abstract figure, but when you hear that we're giving money to someone to potentially cure Alzheimer's and other diseases of the brain, you start to realize why they have that big impact. And so typically, I think giving money to WVU is a good, solid investment for the state of West Virginia. But with this particular example, when they're asking for $2 million for an FDA trial to treat PTSD and eating disorders, I think that was a no-brainer, essentially. And some people were kidding, can we give you more? Do you need more?
Right.
Because we're that supportive of it.
Now, it's ultrasound technology. So again, back to your physician's background, I went to journalism school, so science and math is out of my realm. But it seems to me that this would be a non-invasive procedure that would only affect that specific portion, those specific neurons in the brain, and leave the rest of it alone.
Totally correct. The side effects appear to be none from this treatment. So when you've got a therapy with no side effects that's tremendously effective, that's good medicine.
Yeah, that's for sure. So where can this go from here? You talked a little bit about this being an initial investment. I mean, long term, I'm sure you guys have played this out. What could this possibly mean? Is this something that we could see in all of the hospital systems in West Virginia? Is this something that we could use as a seed to grow this into new technology? We talk a lot about diversifying the economy, finding new ways to get jobs and corporations here. We saw Pittsburgh do that. They kind of reinvented themselves after the steel industry into kind of a hospital system there. Is that something that could be in our future?
No question. I believe Morgantown, with the NCI Cancer Center that they're trying to develop, now world-class, cutting-edge neuroscience, Ruby is going to be a major nationwide medical center. And you can see this developing very quickly. And that is a direction that this state and this legislature and this legislative leadership wants to go. And we're going to fund it accordingly, because Pittsburgh up the road is no better example of what they've done to reinvent themselves. And I think you can start to see that happening very quickly in Morgantown. Now, can this technology spread around the state and around the country? I hope so. We certainly have people with these diseases in all 50 states.
Yeah.
So by no means do we want to make this exclusive to Morgantown or Charleston.
But it is important here because, especially when you talk about substance abuse disorder, we've heard the stats on opioid use in West Virginia. I mean, something like that could go a long way here.
No question. There's absolutely no question that this could be a game changer for the state of West Virginia. But this technology could really be a game changer for the entire country. And this is exciting. and we're on the cutting edge. And when you get researchers that come in and develop this technology, get it perfected, then they're on to the next thing. The key component is it's happening here in West Virginia. The minds that are developing these programs are coming here, and that's the key thing.
Now, we talk about no-brainers. There are some issues that seem to have bipartisan support across the board, and maybe this speaks to that because what happened was you guys got it through finance right away. It's on the floor, second reading today. Usually you don't see something like that happen before all the budgetary things are worked out. So, I mean, it seems like this was something that caught your attention, that everyone could agree on quickly that this was important, and you got it through quickly.
100%, because I think the 60 Minutes presentation made an impact on those who didn't know about the program already. I appreciate our speaker and certainly Delegate Rohrbach for taking leadership on this. And when you have something that is just so obviously a good issue, it's easy to get consensus and support. And to your point, Rick, about WVU medicine growing, when I was a kid growing up, it was UPMC. I mean, to dare to make a comparison would have been almost laughable when I was a little one. But the steps that WVU medicine is taking, we are playing with the big boys, we are pushing the envelope, and we're challenging. It is a truly exciting time for healthcare in the state of West Virginia.
It doesn't seem like there will be many bumps in the road before you can get this over to the Senate. Have you had any talks with members of the Senate across the hall here, and you think it's something that'll probably be streamlined and get through rather quickly?
It appears that will be the case. This is important to WVU medicine, and it's important to the citizens of the state of West Virginia. So I suspect this to get pushed very quickly on the governor's desk, and we can get this work ongoing and just continue the good work that they're doing up in Morgantown.
Well, if you want to check out some of the research again, I believe it's transcranial ultrasound stimulation, TUS. Go ahead and Google it, check it out for yourself, see what this is all about, and see where it could be headed here in the state of West Virginia. I want to thank Delegates John Williams and Matthew Rohrbach for your time today, guys. Thank you very much, and we'll see where this heads.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with more Outside the Echo Chamber after this.
At Dutch Miller Automotive, we've grown quite a bit over the last 60 years, but our core principles remain the same. We believe in treating our customers and our team members like friends and family, and we see it as our obligation to give back to all the communities we are so fortunate to do business in. In just West Virginia alone, we've grown from one location on the west end of Huntington to 10 rooftops employing more than 500 Mountaineers. Check out the inventory from all of our stores at DutchMillerAuto.com. Dutch Miller Automotive Group, West Virginia proud.
At CAMC, our focus has always been on building better healthcare for you. Our new Center for Learning and Research combines cutting-edge technology with hands-on experience for physicians, nurses, and other caregivers. Using specially designed simulation rooms and robotics with expert instruction, our learners expand their expertise. Because you deserve the most advanced care possible, now and in the years to come. Welcome to the future of medicine.
The HD Media Plus app is your ticket to see all the action on the hard court as it happens.
Saunders with the three.
Sam's makes it in! Sam's from three, buries it off the glass! And the Red
Dozens of live games that you won't see anywhere else, featuring some of the best teams in the state. Watch the game live or later at your convenience, and the best part, it's free. Download the HD Media Plus app today to your smartphone or TV so you won't miss another shot. All right, welcome back inside the state capitol. We're going to switch gears here and talk about an issue now that kind of marries a couple of issues, a controversial issue that's been a talker for a while here in the State House, and another issue that people believe needs to get fixed permanently. And there's been a unique proposal brought up that could marry those two issues and perhaps come up with a solution. And joining me now are delegates, senators, let me get that right, Senators Mike Oliverio and Senator Mike Caputo. Gentlemen, thank you. And just to unpack what this is a little bit, you have brought up an interesting proposal that would first need a ballot measure. If recreational marijuana is approved by the voters, you would take that revenue, some of that revenue, and allocate it to PEIA as a permanent fix. This is something that has never been discussed before, but something that could happen and could actually be a solution to an issue that a lot of people believe needs to be fixed? Just
Well,
talk a little bit
I
about
don't
your
know if it would be a permanent fix, but it would be part of the solution because we don't know how much money that would bring
of
in
course,
until
sure.
we figure out the regulations
Crunch the
and the
numbers.
taxes and the fees that go along with it. So just an idea. We all know that PEIA is a problem. We all know that PEIA premiums are going to increase. We all know that. But we're not really doing anything except dumping it on the employees to raise their premiums. And we throw them a little pay raise, and I'm for that. And then we raise their premiums, and I've had constituents tell me they've lost money from the pay raise versus the premiums than they had the year before. So I'm just trying to think outside the box here a little bit to send some money toward what we all know is a problem. Not all the money, 50% will go toward PEIA, 50% will go toward the state of, the general budget for the entire state of West Virginia. But this doesn't happen unless we legalize recreational cannabis.
Right, it's a twofold approach.
It's a twofold approach. And we have a solution to that.
An issue that's been brought up before, and it's never really gotten much traction. Is this a way, in your eyes, to kind of shoehorn something else into it that might make people be like, okay, well, this is something I can live with now?
Well, I'm just trying to take the politics out of it and let the people decide. I mean, my colleagues from the other side of the aisle talk about freedom a lot. This is the freedom for the state of West Virginia to decide whether or not we want to legalize recreational cannabis, and I respect that, whatever, but let's let the people decide that. My solution is where the money goes if it is decided. That's my proposal.
It certainly has proven to be a revenue generator in states that have enacted recreational marijuana use. I don't know if you've crunched the numbers or not, but we are talking about millions of dollars potentially. Is that something you could get on board with, or would you have to see first how this looks and what it would do?
We share the concern of PEIA. Our district that we both represent, the 13th, probably has more public employees than any district in the state. And more than that, we have more employees who work in the healthcare field, and their compensation in part comes from PEIA. Our hospital workers at Mont General and Ruby and Fairmont, so PEIA is an important issue to all legislators, but to us it's a very important issue because we have both sides of it, the public employees and families who need the coverage and the healthcare workers whose income is derived from PEIA benefits, So Senator Caputo and I, we disagree on the using marijuana as a funding source. Our youth in West Virginia are among the highest in the country at vaping right now. Our opioid numbers, all of those things are really bad, and I don't feel like recreational marijuana would help us in any of those areas. In fact, I would like to see some dollars spent on trying to reduce tobacco use, particularly among our youth, and we've got some of those programs in place, but I want to grow those. So we're going a little different direction on that. But we share the concern of what can we do to fix PEIA. And we really need transparency in PEIA, particularly in the pricing and with respect to the pharmaceutical issues. And our chairman, Eric Tarr, our finance chairman, one of his real priorities is getting a handle on this transparency of the drug pricing. And so we're doing a deep dive in that area, trying to understand how this pricing is occurring, because the pricing not only impacts the state paying this bill, but it has a huge impact on our constituents who are insured by PEIA, who are paying co-pays and deductibles that maybe they shouldn't have to be paying, or they should pay at a much reduced rate.
Is there an argument to be made, and I'm just going to set this up for you, that you talked about kids. I would assume that if this gets through and it's you're not going to, you'd have to have an ID, much like to buy alcohol in this state. But is there not an argument to be made that alcohol is also a mind-altering, behavioral-altering drug? It's legal. It's regulated. Is there an argument to be made that if you regulate this, not only is it a revenue generator, but it might actually be safer in a way, because if a 19-year-old wants marijuana, let's just be honest, they know how to get it. They'll get it. So if you regulate it and you can get the tax revenue off of that, you're almost just hurting the drug dealers more than anything else, and then you're using that money for the state's benefit. Is that not a reasonable argument?
Yeah, I don't want to promote the use of marijuana, and I think when you legalize it, you do that. I would rather see our state take some steps to discourage the use of marijuana and particularly discourage the use of tobacco. And I think those two things will contribute to the health of West Virginians more so than legalizing marijuana. You may have seen an article just about 2 or 3 weeks ago in the Wall Street Journal about the legalization of marijuana and the different levels of the THC and things that are going on now. And it's not the product that people used in the 70s and 80s. It's a much more dangerous product, and I think presents real risks to our citizens. So my focus would be, let's find other stable funding and not go down that path. And that's where we just respectfully disagree.
Yeah,
well, I mean, we have legalized medicinal marijuana, so there's another argument to be made there. Well, if you're conceding that it can be used for good in certain situations, why can't that be a recreational drug as well, as long as it's regulated and that there are rules in place?
Well, Mike and I do disagree on that, and I think he's a tremendous senator, and he's not only a tremendous senator, he's a tremendous friend, so we're allowed to have these discussions. But the amendment puts it at 21 plus. You have to be 21 to purchase the recreational. I don't use it. I mean, I never did like how it made me feel in the 70s. I'm not a user, but so it's not
You're aging
personal.
yourself now.
Yeah, it's not personal with me, but I hear from a lot of Vietnam veterans who want it. I've heard from cancer victims before we legalized it medicinally that, their dad was going out on the street buying it for them because they couldn't eat, they couldn't sleep. I know a guy who probably never had a parking ticket in the world, and his daughter had anal cancer, and he was buying marijuana on the street to help his daughter. And the guy was as straight as an arrow. He probably never knew what marijuana looked like before. So we got to take that stigma away. People was not afraid of marijuana anymore. They're just not. And the problem I see with not legalizing it, with all due respect to my colleague here, they are buying it off the street. You don't see a 12-year-old in a liquor store, right? But the dealer on the street doesn't ask for an ID. He asks for green, or she asks for green. If the money's there, they get the drug. We got a fentanyl problem in the state. It's killing people. If we can do that, if we regulate it and legalize it, and those who want to use it, those adults who should be able to have the freedom, which we hear that word a lot around here, the freedom to use marijuana, know that they're buying a safe product. To me, that's worth everything in the world. I don't know what kind of money it's going to generate. I mean, Senator Oliverio is much better at those numbers than I will ever be. But I'll tell you what it's going to generate if we don't do anything. That's zero.
We do know
that is zero. We know that.
And the temperature of morality changes and evolves over time. And there was probably a good decade or so when people would have believed that there's no way that legalized gambling or table games would ever pass in the state of West Virginia. It did, and it's been a moneymaker for the state. Do you see this ever becoming something that people from the Republican side of things could get on board with if it's done a certain way? Or is this a deal breaker from the start?
Yeah, I wish I could predict the future.
Right.
But
you'd be at Mardi Gras Casino if you could.
Right. Yeah, I just, where I am personally, I don't support it. I can't speak for others. But I would rather we focus our attention in other areas.
So you talk about that. This has been an issue, the PEI issue, for a while now. And nobody's been able to come up with something that I think can reach across the aisle and get everyone on board with. I mean, I'm sure you give him credit for thinking outside the box and trying to come up with something. I mean, in your mind, is there something else then? Because we talk a lot about, well, if you don't like something and you're complaining about something, fine, what's your solution? So let me ask you that. What would your solution be?
Sure. I think the focus has been more money, and not enough focus has been on how are we spending the money and why are these pharmaceutical costs just completely out of control. We have 3 pharmacies in Morgantown that are Kroger's, and Kroger threw their hands up and said, hey, we can't take PEIA anymore. Why is that? And how can we get to the bottom of that problem and understand what's going on? And part of it is these pharmaceutical benefit managers and the way they're pricing these products and the way they're establishing the co-pays. They're crunching our independent pharmacies. They're charging them different prices for the same drug that they're selling to others. And so our health committee and our Senate Finance Committee in the coming weeks is really drilling down on this and trying to figure out what can we do to solve this problem? And if it requires additional state money, we can do that. I mean, people say they want stable funding for PEIA. PEIA is funded by general revenue. That's the most stable funding source we have. So we can fund this properly. We went 12 years without an increase of the PEIA participants in terms of premium. We've not increased the premium on the retirees. Unfortunately, there was an increase last year. It was coupled with a $2,300 pay raise in our school systems. It was coupled with a rebate on personal property tax, and it was coupled with a 20% reduction in state income tax. So there was an effort to accommodate that increase in premium after 12 years of not having one.
And premiums are going to continue to increase probably for the next 3 or 4 years.
They may need to, yes. And so what we're trying to do is figure out why they're increasing and what we can do to stem that tide with policy changes. And I think there's a lot of room that can be done, a lot of work that can be done in that area.
Now, again, this would all be moot if it doesn't get passed at the ballot box anyway. This is a measure that
Look,
would have
I
to be
agree
approved.
with my colleague here. He's looking at ideas from another aspect to help this problem. We recognize it's a problem. I will work with him and the leadership from the other side of the aisle to help with all of that. But I'm finding another avenue, and that's what we're supposed to do down here, is try to bring it all together. I think this is a plan that could help a problem. I will not say solve a problem. You know it's not going to solve the problem. But we had huge surpluses over the last years because of the federal dollars that came down from here, the Joe Biden dollars that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to say that word in this building. But that's where that money comes from. And we're using it for everything. Guess what we didn't use it for? We didn't use it to help PEIA. Now, you can argue we did because we gave a pay raise. We did because we gave a tax break. Yeah, those are all fair and just arguments my colleague has advanced. But we didn't take any of that money and put it back in the PEIA reserve fund. We didn't have increases all those years because we had a strong reserve fund and we were taking the money out of there. That's the goal I have here. You know, and I want to have the discussion just like we're having today. I would welcome that debate on the floor. And been around a long time. I accept a loss, accept a win, but let's have the debate. And more importantly, let's let the people have the debate. Let's let the people have the debate and tell us, look, you work for us. Every once in a while something comes along that you guys under that gold dome can't figure out. So let us figure it out for you. That's all I'm saying.
And you mentioned the people. The opinion, if you look at the history go back 10, 15 years, 20 years ago, this would have never even had a chance of getting on a ballot.
We wouldn't be talking about it.
Absolutely not. That's changed a little bit, and the numbers are kind of, there's some momentum toward getting something like this passed. I don't know if we're there yet, but I know that you get feedback on this a lot. Do you think that a ballot measure for recreational marijuana would ever have a chance in West Virginia?
I do, and I'll tell you why. I have been supporting recreational cannabis for several years now. I've not got a constituent call me up yet and tell me, you're crazy, you shouldn't be doing this. Had one lady who said she would never vote for me again because of that, but after I explained to her how it would be regulated, kind of like a liquor store scenario, and a 12-year-old, she goes, my goodness, I was a delegate then. She goes, my goodness, delegate, that makes all the sense in the world. If it's going to be there, we're not going to get rid of every drug dealer in the state of West Virginia, so we might as well regulate it. And you mentioned the gambling thing. We were the last on board for the gambling thing. Look where we're at now. We're not generating the revenue we should have been if we would have done that 10 years before we did. All the states around us are looking at recreational cannabis. They're putting it on ballots around us. We're going to be last in line for that, too. I mean, that's the question.
And I believe if you look at certain states, not all of them, but Colorado was one of the first, and I believe it's bringing in 8 figures for them.
I don't have the numbers.
In state revenue. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's not meaningless. It's significant money. Do you think that would ever pass, though, in West Virginia, legalized
again, I'm not going to predict how the voters are going to vote. I don't believe West Virginia will be a better state if we legalize marijuana for recreational use. And so that's why I'm opposed to it. Whether there would be support or not, or whether dollars would come from it or not, that's not as relevant to me as just a basic feeling that I don't believe it makes our state a better place. I worry about our younger generations using vaping and tobacco now, that if given the blessing of marijuana being legal, if that use would increase dramatically. My preference would be that we address the tobacco use issue with young people, discourage it, and at the end of the day, let the medical marijuana legalization issues address those people who really feel they need the product for health issues.
Fair to say that regardless of where this goes, the hope for you is that this at least sparks some conversation.
Yeah,
maybe
let's talk about it.
Other ideas.
My colleague here
to
is so articulate, and he believes everything he says, and he speaks from his heart. And I respect that more than you could ever imagine. Mike has been so good to me down here in the Senate. I respect it. We just have a difference of opinion here. I just want to have the debate. I don't know. I just think West Virginians would be better off, let me say that, if the product was legalized, regulated, and controlled. Because it's going to be out there regardless.
And taxed where you can get the money.
Exactly. When I say regulated, I mean that. But it's going to be there. If anybody thinks we can pass 1,000 bills tomorrow, guess what? It's not going to make marijuana go away. It's just not. It's like it wouldn't make gambling go away. Something happened. We need to weigh in on this.
We have to go away for a break, but I want to thank our senators for joining us today. Mike Oliverio, always a pleasure. Mike Caputo, great to see you guys get along and be able to have these types of debates, and maybe it can generate more talk down the road on some other solutions. Thank you for joining us, guys. Yeah, sure. We'll be right back with more Outside the Echo Chamber.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, guys.
When it comes to surgical care, you want the best hands behind the robot. And those are ours. Choose Mon Health. Feel the difference.
Are you ready to unlock a future filled with remarkable pay, unbeatable benefits, and unparalleled satisfaction? Imagine embarking on a journey that offers you a college-level education without the weight of debt, all while earning a steady income. Look no further than the West Virginia Building and Construction Trades Apprenticeship Programs. Join us, and together, let's build a future that's brighter and stronger. Go to actwv.org to apply today. The West Virginia Building and Construction Trades, where the future is forged.
Welcome back inside the state capitol. That's going to do it for another episode of Outside the Echo Chamber. Great discussions today. We want to thank our guests, Senators Mike Oliverio and Mike Caputo, and delegates John Williams and Matthew Rohrbach. But be sure to join us next Tuesday, where we will have another episode as the session continues, as we continue to talk about issues important to you and your family. Until then, I'm Rick Lord. Take care.